dried hibiscus flowers, put them in a pan with peeled and chopped ginger, sugar, and water. And we cook that and then strain it. And it ends up a really nice, deeply colored syrup. So what we'll do is we'll take in our mixer and fill it with some ice, about 2/3 of the way. We're going to do 2 ounces of Four Roses, which is our house bourbon that we use. And I always measure cocktails, especially when I'm making the first one, just to make sure we get our recipe straight. We're also going to do some of the hibiscus ginger syrup, and that will be an ounce, just short of an ounce. We are going to use chai liqueur, which is by a local Connecticut producer called Wild Moon. They do some lovely infused liqueur and flavored liqueurs. So we're going to do a 1/2 ounce of the chai liqueur. And we're going to squeeze a couple of lemons. You want to put the whole thing in there and squeeze it out as much as you possibly can.
Move.
Take that little bigger. Up. Glass, which is lovely. Like the whole up. Top this with soda. That's straight club soda. And then put one of the dried hibiscus flowers in for garnish.
Are those edible?
They are edible.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
So that there is the Kentucky flower. And the next one that we'll do
That was so nice.
is called the Drunken Bunny, which is a play on a rum cocktail, classic rum punch cocktail. So we're going to be using, again, a heat of about 2/3 full mixer of ice. We use El Dorado, which is a really nice dark rum, and it's aged 8 years. We're going to do 1.5 ounces of that. So 1.5. So we do this cranberry and carrot puree. We take carrots, ginger, sugar, water, lemon juice, and cranberry juice. We put that all, we put the carrots slightly in boiling water and soften them a bit, then mix all those together and puree them. So that's what this is. We'll do 1 full ounce of this. We have a liqueur called Velvet Falernum. And that's what this is right here. Velvet Falernum, ironically, was invented by John D. Taylor, who's also the inventor of Coca-Cola. And Velvet Falernum is kind of a lime and ginger flavored liqueur. It's available at most fine liquor stores. We are also, again, going to squeeze in a couple of lemons for balance. Again, when I squeeze those into the mixer, I put the whole thing in there for shaking. This one, we are going to be using a highball glass. Whenever you're making cocktails, I would suggest straining the cocktail out of the shaker over new ice. Here. Well, watching. You'll notice that with most of our recipes, they're scaled just perfectly to fill the glassware that we're using, and so it is important. Next cocktail that we're going to be doing, Hemingway. So a Hemingway is a classic gin cocktail, and it's rumored to have been Ernest Hemingway's favorite cocktail before his passing. But the Hemingway, spelled G-U-E-Y, is a little play on that because we're using tequila instead of gin. So the classic Hemingway recipe had a liqueur called creme de violette, which is a French liqueur that's made basically into a syrup and fermented with fresh violets, which lend the color, which is obviously violet or purple, lemon juice, grapefruit juice, and gin. And I think there was a little honey in that. But we're using tequila instead of gin. So here we go. Again, we're going to take a mixer and fill it about 2/3 of the way with ice. We're going to use 2 ounces of white tequila. You can use añejo or reposado, which are the darker colored tequilas, but generally speaking, when you're making cocktails with tequila, you'll want to use the white tequila for juices and margaritas and all that other stuff. It works best because Blanco tequila accepts all the other flavors and mixes much more well with those than the darker tequilas, which are añejo and reposado. Also, añejo and reposado tequilas, having been aged, are meant for sipping and enjoying the complex flavors that they have all by themselves. So there's the tequila that we have in there. We're just going to do a little splash of grapefruit. We use little small cans because it stays freshest that way. So about 1 ounce or so of the ocean spray. And we're going to do a 1/2 ounce each of the Violette. We use a brand called Giffard.
What is Violette?
So Violette is a liqueur made from violets. You take violets, sugar, water, and then they, after they soak them, they ferment it for a time until it's just the right alcoholic strength. And we're also using Luxardo Maraschino, which is another part of that original Hemingway cocktail recipe. So Luxardo Maraschino liqueur is basically cherry liqueur that's half strength. It's not full strength like 80 proof brandy. It's about 40 proof. So there's some sweetness to that. And we also need to do the lemons again. We like to use a rocked glass and the very large cubes for this drink. So these you can get in most of the big department stores or supply stores. They're nice, big, thick rungs. They also come in balls too, so you get a nice round ball that you can put in your rocks glass. With this drink, you don't shake, you stir. So we will stir that. Strain that over the big rock. You'll notice it's a faint purplish hue. I like to garnish this with the twist. With the twist, it's important. You want to express it so the little oils get squeezed out of it, and you put that right on the rim. So that little twist right on the rim right now. That's the Hemingway. Isn't it lovely? Now, the last one that I'm going to make is something that I love to fashions are extremely popular with the old school New England crowd that loves to go to seafood houses. Its original intimation was done with rye, much more popular these days with bourbon, but I am of the classic kind of balance that rye offers. So bourbons as whiskeys are generally sweeter. Why is that? Well, the mash has got to be 51% corn. There's lots of corn syrup and corn sugar in that liqueur. Ryes offer a slightly spicier whiskey. They spend or have the requirements for aging are not like bourbon, where bourbon has to spend a certain amount of time in vanilla American oak, which is high in like vanilla and caramel hints that add to the softening and the sweetening of the whiskey as it ages. Ryes tend to be a little bit spicier, because they're not required to be or a little bit more spice. And generally speaking, you might have seen them do a little sugar packet, white sugar, maraschino cherries, the old pink-looking things, half of a wedge of orange that you squeeze in there, and then you just pour your whiskey in, mash it all together, put some ice on top of it, and a splash of soda. I do it quite a bit differently. I don't want it to be something that's, I think that's a recipe that kind of was accepted back in the 70s and 80s when, let's face it, making great cocktails wasn't really a thing. It was about speed, flair, and ease rather than flavors and extracting the best amount of flavor that you could out of the cocktail. When I make an old fashioned, I don't use a sugar packet, except I do for one part. What I do is I use, and the cherries that we use are Luxardo maraschinos. You saw me use the Luxardo liqueur. The Luxardo, the company that makes that liqueur, also makes these maraschino cherries, but they're Amarenas, which are dark black cherries. So you'll see they're extremely dark in comparison to a maraschino cherry, which is that artificial red color.
Where can you get those?
You can get those in most fine liquor stores.
Oh, wow.
Yep, they'll have them at big ones like Total Wine. They'll have them at small local shops like here in Bloomfield, Anon's place down the road, Gillette Ridge, which is wonderful. I'm pretty sure Anon carries those there. And at any rate, I'll get started on this cocktail. So we can get another. So when I make an old fashioned, for rye, I'm going to use one of the original whiskey houses in the United States. If you ever saw Boardwalk Empire with Nucky Thompson on HBO, this comes into play in the show. So it's called Old Overholt. So it's the oldest bonded whiskey producer in the United States of rye. So we're going to do 2 ounces of the Old Overholt. And instead of using a sugar packet, what I do is I take 2 of these cherries and fill the spoon with the syrup from the bottom of the container. Put that right in there. Take a half of a wedge of orange. Put that right in here as well. And then I use the whiskey to kind of get the syrup off the spoon. I take a muddler. You might have to use something like the end of the rolling pin at home, but just take anything you can and mash these all together in the bottom of the mixer. As a rule, some bartenders and professionals will disagree with me on how I do this part, but I do this part for integration. Integration, I mean mixing, basically. So I take ice and fill it 2/3 of the way on top of the ingredients that are in there, and then I shake it. And that's the part that I'm saying, because most professional bartenders would argue that with brown liquor cocktails, they don't believe that you should shake them. Why? Because it kind of takes the edges out of the complexity of high-end whiskeys. But here we're not really using high-end whiskey. We're using a great old producer whiskey, but it's got the spice I need and all the other elements I need to integrate. And the best way to do that in this particular case, take it and shake it. Take the top off there. Here's the fun part. So, this is something I kind of discovered by accident coming home from camping. Been in the restaurant business a long time, and I happened to notice in my garage that I had a little brulee attachment on my torch for doing creme brulees at the old restaurant I used to work at. And I had just come home, so I had my propane tank, and I wanted an old-fashioned, and I had an orange in my cooler, and I had just got some rhubarb bitters. So I said, I'm going to make a really good old-fashioned. So, I got to get this in view here. So what I did is I took an orange, this lovely rhubarb bitters that I had just got, because I love the flavor of my orange. What I do is I soak the orange wedge with rhubarb bitters.
Where should you buy rhubarb bitters at?
Again, you'd have to do some searching, but some fine liquor shops should have. I know Anon might. Again, Total Wine's a great place. They got a huge section of bitters in their store. And then I take the raw sugar. It's called Demerara. Domino makes this brand. You kind of just pat it into that. And I do this on a plate because I don't want to. If the orange is laying right against the plate, I have it on the spoon. You don't want to crack the plate. But if you have it lifted up off the plate on the spoon, it'll work. What you do is torch the edge of the orange first. You'll notice the oil's sparking. And then you do the top. And what happens is the sugar hardens like candy on the top. Let it cool a second. And then we'll take another one of those nice big square cubes. Put it in there. We'll rest this right on top. We'll hear it sizzle. And then strain it right over. Wow. Now, the really wonderful thing about this cocktail is those rhubarb bitters are trapped under that hard candy sugar top, sitting on top of the cube, and it slowly seeps out of that while you drink it. So it's the drink that changes every kind of sip you take of it, but it's meant for slowly sipping and watching it and feeling it change as you drink it. So that's something I like to offer to people who love old fashions are probably used to that old recipe with a little packet of white sugar, a gross old fake colored cherry, and this is a wonderful new option. And I hope you enjoy it. And please ask questions if you have any.
When did the craft cocktails really come into fashion?
So I think you'd find, looking back, that it happened just as, dining out was becoming more appealing from a quality standpoint. Back when I was born in 1970, it was kind of like special to go out to like a Howard Johnson's and go eat. And then 10 years later, you saw people, and it kind of started with basic things like steakhouses. Steakhouses started doing things like, besides the jug Gallo wine and inexpensive wine and plain brand cocktails, we started seeing things like fine wines from Europe and from Napa start to gain traction in dining out. The idea of going out and entertaining guests from business dinner standpoint, that was kind of more popular. And so as soon as Food Network started to air shows and things like that, you saw the craft cocktail thing just follow along and follow suit. Once everyone started paying attention to specific ingredients and, watching chefs do their thing on Iron Chef and things like that. Of course, I think everything else is going to come in right behind it and follow it behind it. Craft beer is, you know, the more recent thing that has hit here, in particular in New England. It's other than it is anywhere else in the country, you know. But I think that's
What beers do you have on craft beer?
right now. We have a few. We have a few popular ones that are mainstream, like Dogfish Chef's Head 60-minute Ace Pineapple Cider, Delirium Tremens, which is a Belgian ale here outside. We have Lost Tropic Sour Cider, which is a lovely dry cider, and that's something that's just kind of new. Sours in the beer world have been a thing recently. Now ciders are taking part in that, and especially I'm a diabetic, so I can't drink the sweet ciders, but I don't want to drink beer either because it's carbs.
Right.
So the sour, super dry cider is a wonderful new option for me. We have Counterweight, which is a great brewery known for a few things. We have their Crucial Mass, which is double IPA. Double IPAs are really big in the beer world now. And then we have Austin East, which is another cider. And Guinness.
And what's your most popular beer?
Our most popular beer is one that we don't have on tap at the moment because we are out, but it's probably Stony Creek Cranky, which is a Connecticut brewery, and it's their entry-level or session IPA. What a session IPA is an IPA with a lower alcoholic strength. What session means is they can have one and then have another without worrying about driving home and getting in trouble. You know what I mean? Or going to sleep.
And tell us, like, what drinks do you find women tend to order versus men?
Ironically, those things are becoming less and less clear the more of this craft cocktail dining out thing takes hold. I think that those days where you would expect women to get this, this, and this, and men to get this, this, and this, that gap is narrowing, and you know, women are becoming more adventurous. They want to drink the whiskeys. They want to drink the neat Scotch whiskeys. They want to drink Manhattans. They want to drink martinis and Gibsons and things like that. It's not just Cosmos anymore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That being said, the Cosmo, the Margarita, are popular. When I do notice a difference, and I notice like more of those being ordered, it tends to be the female 2-to-1 maybe against men. But still, that being said, I got a regular who comes to me all the time. He's a man. He's about 65 years old. He loves Cosmos. So, you know what I mean? So,
I have another question for you. If
Sure.
a woman is looking to watch her weight, what type of drinks do you suggest?
well, what I suggest are liquor cocktails. What I mean by that are exactly what I mean: clear, no liquors, gins, vodkas, tequilas. Blanco tequila, gin, vodka, generally speaking, are the lowest calorie, and they even have certain low-cal brands of those liqueurs to make cocktails with. Then again, you also want to mix them with things that are also low-calorie, like club soda. All regular sodas like tonics, Coke, Sprite, those are all very high in calories. And then another thing that's very low-cal too is citrus with the less sweet, with the lower calories, like limes and lemons. So, you know, me being a diabetic, needing to stay away from calories and sugar, I tend to drink those white liquor drinks with club soda and a squeeze of lime or lemon. That's how I have it.
Do you make any hot drinks?
Oh yeah.
What type of thing?
I have had people want hot chocolate that has some. We have a bunch of different liqueurs that would work too. There's a really nice pumpkin liqueur. There's a chocolate liqueur that comes in a white and dark version. Obviously, there's Baileys, there's Kahlua. There's even fun things like a sherry that I love using for dessert as well. This is a type of sherry that hardly anyone would know about unless somebody like me behind the bar would introduce it to them. And it tastes like espresso, toffee, cocoa, caramel, citrus peel. I like offering when people are looking at a dessert menu to get a scoop of ice cream in a cocktail glass. I pour a couple ounces of this over it. They mix it together, and it's just amazing. And you know, this bottle goes for so much less than a bottle of, let's say, pork. You could probably find this in the store for around $15 or $20. And it's so sweet that a couple ounces every so often could last you through the wintertime. You know, lovely stuff.
And
That would be great in an ice cream milkshake type thing, or a hot chocolate. That would be wonderful too. And then I make hot toddies. You know, when I was a kid, my family is Lithuanian and mine's 57 varieties really. So, but my great grandmother used to make me this stuff when I was like 14. You know, she'd give me brandy, whiskey, tea, and coffee all mixed together with cream in it. And of course, I thought it was the best tasting stuff I ever had. But, I always get people with it because they ask me to make it. They're like, oh my God, this is so good. What's in it? And I tell them, they're like, tea and coffee. Yeah, you know, something really good like chamomile type tea or an orange spice type tea with a nice, strong flavored coffee, and then a little brandy and whiskey just goes, and then like squeeze a lemon or lime or something. It's just wonderful. But yeah.
can you recommend some wines for people for Thanksgiving?
Some wines?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a huge wine person, and I used to do the wine program at Max Downtown for about 15 years. But I learned that the regular favorites that people like to enjoy, things like Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Cabernet, Merlot, those wines tend to overpower Thanksgiving. Some Sauvignon Blanc might work, but what you're looking for are things with aromatics. So something that has a lot of scent to it, which usually translates to a lot of flavor. Those type of wines are like Rieslings, Gewürztraminers, Pinot Blancs. But they don't have to be sweet. I think most people listening to me right now might think, oh, I don't like those because they're very sweet. Ironically, a lot of producers over in Europe like to make those wines bone dry. And so if you can think about what it would be like to have a really nice floral smelling Gewürztraminer that's bone dry, if that fits your taste better, ask your wine shop owner, hey, you know, I heard I could get a really good Gewürztraminer that's nice and dry. Do you have a dry one? And the same thing with Riesling, the same thing with Pinot Blanc. And then for reds, generally speaking, I like them a bit lighter. Again, the big, powerful reds like Cabernet and Merlot, I think would really overpower all of the flavors of sides and Thanksgiving, birds, and turkey, and gravy. Things like Beaujolais. Beaujolais is my favorite. The Beaujolais doesn't have to be the Nouveau or the Village. You have all those single villages, Saint-Amour, Juliana, Morgon, and those usually run around $15, $20, $25 if you're getting the best thing out there. And again, guys like Anand down at Julian Ridge, he's got a great selection of stuff, and I just went and picked some up last week. Pinot Noirs also work quite well. And then other kind of medium-bodied varieties, you know, there are a lot of European reds from Spain, like Grenache, and things like that, that would work really nicely. Medium to light in body, I think, is what we want to look for. Some Riojas would be really wonderful from Spain. Some Portuguese lighter-bodied reds might work very nicely as well. What's really cool about Portugal and Spain is our palates here being used to, you know, supporting domestic USA wineries. When we taste things from Spain and Portugal that are beyond what we know, all of a sudden we're tasting a wine that tastes like nothing we've ever tasted before. So those can be real fun. I might suggest something like that for Thanksgiving too.
Do you like any wines from New Zealand?
Love New Zealand. Yeah. And since we're talking Pinot Noir, actually one of the wines that we pour here by the glass for our Pinot Noir, House Pinot Noir, is a New Zealand Pinot Noir. And they're lovely. They're really wonderful. Central Otago is perhaps the southernmost wine producing region on the planet, and they're very famous for their Pinot Noirs.
Okay, let me just tell everybody, last call for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in
Now, ladies, I made all these cocktails. If you'd like to try one, please, by all means, grab a glass and take a sip. I have to wash all these dishes anyway, so might as well
Okay.
enjoy while you're cleaning up. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm just walking over to the dishwasher here.
Okay. So I'm trying this one.
How is it, Sheila? Tell everybody.
It's delicious. You can't see me here, sorry. Oh, I can come down here. I just want to tell everybody it's wonderful.
Want to try the other one?
I'll try. I have to try this one, the old fashioned, and then Mary, you can try the other two. Okay, so I'm gonna try the old fashioned. Definitely a sipping drink.
It is.
Yep.
Yep. And also, it probably tastes quite a bit different from when the
Yeah.
time I put it in the glass to now.
Oh,
As a
okay.
matter of fact, I think it probably is a little softer and sweeter now than it would have been when I first put it in. It's mostly whiskey. So the first sip is usually stronger, and then the longer it sits, the softer and sweeter it gets, you know.
Okay. Now you try them now. Oh, okay. Jeez.
Okay.
Okay, so Mara's saying I have to try these all. so.
It's a tough job. Somebody's got to do it.
So that one was good. You taste the carrot in it?
It should only be slight. The flavor of the carrot is really slight.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But ironically, carrot does have a pretty high sugar content.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Kate is on tape. Your mom is trying them all.
She's probably saying, I figured.
Oh, great.
Okay, so I think of all of them, this is my favorite.
That, yeah.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
That's the very
Absolutely.
Thank you,
It
Justin.
is my pleasure. In our Hartford restaurant, I don't know the exact address, but it's on the corner of Capitol and Main.
Oh, okay.
So right down the road from the Bushnell, heading towards Main Street, right there at the corner is Republic on the corner of Capitol and Main.
Excellent. Well, thank you very, very much. We hope to be back again soon.
Well,
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.